Sunday Show. Today we have Hannah Coggins as an expert on today's society. Welcome to the show, Hannah.
Thanks for having me.
The first question for you, Hannah, is on the topic of suburbs and home ownership. Who is responsible for this growth?
William Levitt was responsible for the growth of Levitt towns around the country.
So what are the positives of these Levitt towns?
The positive of these Levitt towns was William Levitt was able to create a way to build more houses in a shorter amount of time that cost less and was affordable. They were efficient and fast to build. They were under $8,000 to purchase, and they provided homes for returning GIs and their families.
But I heard there are many disadvantages. What were the disadvantages of William Levitt's Levitt towns?
Well, the disadvantages of William Levitt's Levitt towns were there was racial segregation. So colored people, mainly African Americans, were not allowed to buy or rent any houses in the Levitt towns. And because of that, there was a lot of tension between whites and African Americans.
The next question is on the rise of the car culture. Why did this rise occur?
Well, because William Levitt had a way for people to buy houses at a cheaper price, more people were able to move out of the city and into the suburbs. And since they were able to buy the houses at a cheaper price, they had more and more families had money left over to buy a car, so more and more families started to have cars.
This brings us to the topic of the interstate highway system. What was the interstate highway system?
The interstate highway system is a network of controlled access highways that is a part of the national highway system of the United States, named for President Dwight D. Eisenhower.
When was it constructed?
The construction of the interstate highway system was authorized by the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. It has a total length of 47,714 miles.
And this was brought up by the rise of the car culture?
Because of the car increase in middle-class families, they needed the interstate so people could travel farther, and more day trips became more common among middle-class families.
Thank you for coming on the show, Hannah.
My pleasure.
We will be back after these messages.
Oh, I hate when I find money in the silverware drawer.
Get a credit card! Is money in your car?
Where do I put all this money?
Getting too much money?
What do I do with all this money?
Get a credit card! Credit card.
My very own credit card.
Welcome back to the Sunday Show. Now we have Taylor Starkey as an expert on human culture. Welcome to the show, Taylor.
Thank you for having me.
Our first question for you is on the baby boom. Can you explain what this is?
The baby boom is when men came back from war and felt as if they needed to make up for lost time with their families. The period lasted from 1945 to 1963, and then in the 1940s it was from 19 births up to 1,000, and then in 1957 it rose to 30 births per 1,000.
So this led to an increase in demographics?
Yes, it did.
The next question is on rock and roll and teen culture. I know there's a tension between teens and their parents. Can you explain this?
Young teens felt misunderstood and alone because their parents were against the movies and music they listened to because they thought they were inappropriate, such as rock and roll.
Why was this music bad, though?
Elvis Presley was a good example because they didn't approve of him because of his dance moves and rude lyrics.
Can you expand on Elvis Presley?
Parents thought that Elvis Presley had questionable dance moves and they weren't appropriate for their daughters to see.
People today are big into TV and mass media. Can you tell us some facts about it?
The television developed during the 1920s and 1930s, but stalled during the war, but then after became enormously popular.
What are some things on television today?
There were very few channels on television, but broadcasting were children's programs like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, teens rock and roll, and American Bandstand, and comedies like I Love Lucy.
How did mass media develop?
Wartime research led to development of powerful calculators and computers.
Any new inventions?
Grace Hopper introduced debugging, which came from a moth that was actually in a computer, and a transistor, which is a circuit that amplifies, controls, generates electrical signals.
Nuclear power come to play.
Nuclear power came to play with the use of atomic energy, which came to produce the atomic bomb.
Did nuclear power affect any branches of the military?
In 1954, the Navy produced the first nuclear-powered submarine, which had a small reactor in the hull.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you for answering all the questions, Taylor.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time on The Sunday Show.